Hi everyone, have a good day. Hope you're all safe at home. Today we will move on to the remaining topic of P block. Just started. Okay, that is, we have seen the general properties or general trends of the P block elements and the anomalous behavior of nitrogen atom, isn't it? So today we will see the general trends only, that is, the first, the reaction with the hydrogen. 4 reactions you have to study. First is the reaction with hydrogen, oxygen, then halogen and metals. Okay, so first is a reaction with the hydrogen. Now you know P block, nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony and bismuth. So these are the elements we are studying in the 15th group. Now the reaction with hydrogen is, see what is the product with hydrogen? NH3, PH3, ASH3, SBH3 and BiH3. So these are the hydrides starting from ammonia to bismuth hydride. Okay. Now we will see there are only 3 important points to be noted in this reaction with the halogens. One is, the most important is stability of hydrides. Okay, that is important. That is, questions can be asked. Stability of hydrides. Now what about the stability of hydrides in this group or 15th group? Now when we talk about stability, when it comes or when from top to bottom in this period, the stability decreases. What is it? Stability decreases. Which means what? Which means ammonia is more stable than BiH3. Questions are asked like that. They won't ask directly why the stability is decreasing. No. They will ask by taking an example of a compound. Like ammonia is more stable than antimony hydride. Why? So that type of questions you can get in this. Okay. So why the stability of hydride is decreasing? That we have to know. And the reason is, you know, since nitrogen is very small, see, nitrogen is very small, then as you go down to the group, bismuth is having a higher size than nitrogen, isn't it? Which means that the bond dissociation enthalpy. What is meant by bond dissociation enthalpy? That means in order to dissociate the bond of this hydrogen, you know that, right? This is the formula of, the structural formula of ammonia. So in order to bond the break between nitrogen and hydrogen, that is called as the bond dissociation enthalpy. Now the bond dissociation enthalpy will go on decreasing when you go from nitrogen to bismuth. Why? Because the atomic size is increasing, isn't it? So when the atomic size is increasing, the overlapping also will decrease, isn't it? Because nitrogen is very small and hydrogen is small. So there is a very maximum overlapping of this nitrogen-hydrogen bond. Thereby the bond dissociation enthalpy is high when compared to bismuth hydride. Bismuth is, the size is very large, the hydrogen is very small, so the overlapping will be not as much maximum or effective as this ammonia or NH3. So that is the reason why the stability of hydride decreases. So the logic behind it is, or the value point is, what you have to write? You have to write the bond dissociation enthalpy decreases from nitrogen to bismuth. Okay, now that also why the reason you know, that is the maximum overlapping and minimum overlapping. That they won't ask in the board exam, but you should know why it happens like that. Okay, so the point is, because of the bond dissociation enthalpy decreases from ammonia to bismuth, nitrogen to bismuth, NH3 is more stable hydride than BiH3, or ammonia is more stable than bismuth hydride. So you got the point? The first one, stability of hydrides. What is stability of hydride? It decreases as you go from top to bottom of group 15. Correct? Okay. Now moving on to next. Next is, when you talk about stability of hydrides, you can also say the reducing character. What is it? Reducing character. So the second point is reducing character, okay, or reducing power. Okay, what about the reducing power? The reducing power increases from top to bottom. Sorry, it increases from top to bottom. Okay, so reducing character increases from top to bottom, whereas stability of hydride decreases from top to bottom. And the reason is same for the stability of hydride. That is, for this also you can say the bond dissociation enthalpy is decreasing, isn't it? The bond dissociation enthalpy is decreasing, thereby the reducing character is increased. Which means what? Just imagine, nitrogen is very small, so you can't take away the hydrogen more effectively as that of bismuth. Bismuth is a bigger one, bigger central atom. So you can take away the hydrogen more readily when compared to ammonia. So when you take away hydrogen, that means reducing power, isn't it? Reducing power, reducing agent which can donate electrons. If hydrogen is removed as a proton, there is a pair of electrons therefore giving out. So the reducing character increases the same reason, for the same reason that the bond dissociation enthalpy is decreasing. Okay, so these are the two main points. Okay, got it? The same logic is there. For the stability of hydrogen decreases and the reducing character increases, the same value point, that is bond dissociation enthalpy, decreases from ammonia to bismuth. Okay. Now one more point here is to be noted is the basicity. What do you mean by basicity? Basicity means the easiness to give out a lone pair of electron. You know, ammonia, all are having what? A lone pair of electrons, right? But the basicity decreases down the group. Which means what? Ammonia is more basic than phosphine, which is more basic than arsenic hydride, which is more basic than antimony hydride, which is more basic than bismuth hydride. So which is the most basic, more basic? That is ammonia. Why? Because it can easily donate the lone pair of electrons. Okay. So the lone pair of electrons it can easily donate. So the basicity decreases in the order of ammonia to bismuth. So ammonia is more basic than the bismuth hydride. So these 3 points to be noted. Okay. While you are making notes, these 3 points must be there. Stability of hydrides reducing character. For both, the logical reason is same, that is the bond dissociation enthalpy is decreased. You know what is bond dissociation enthalpy, right? That is the dissociation of that bond, that nitrogen-hydrogen bond, that decreases because the increase in the size of the central atom. That is maximum overlapping is taking place in ammonia, whereas minimum overlapping is taking place in the bismuth. Okay. Now coming to the basicity, that is ammonia is more basic than bismuth hydride. Because why? Because it is able to donate that lone pair of electrons in nitrogen atom. So these 3 points to be remembered. So that is all about what? The reaction with hydrogen. Clear? Now we will pass on to the second reaction, that is the reaction with oxygen. What is it? The reaction with oxygen. Okay. Now, as far as oxygen is concerned, this nitrogen family, you have to know that nitrogen family, that is nitrogen, phosphorus, arsenic, antimony and bismuth. Okay. So as far as now oxides are concerned, 2 main types of oxides are there in the case of this family. That is N2O5. Okay, when you compare nitrogen, N2O3 and N2O5. Or you can say in general, you can say E2O3. Okay, E2O3 and E2O5. And E stands for, what is this E stands for? E stands for all these elements in the 15th group. We can have what? P2O3 and P2O5, AS2O3 and AS2O5, Sb2O3 and Sb2O5, so on. Okay. Now, when you talk about this reaction with oxygen, you can say, see, this is, let me calculate the oxidation state of these two. Okay, so this oxidation state is -2, so this is +3, and this is -2 and this is +5. So listen, in this case nitrogen is in a +3 oxidation state, and in this case it is in a +5 oxidation state. Okay, now there is a small, not a rule, but the trend is that the compound or the oxide, namely the oxide having higher oxidation number, listen, the oxides having higher oxidation number is more acidic than the oxides having lower oxidation number. You got my point? That means, in short, I can say N2O5 is more acidic than, okay, N2O5 is more acidic than N2O3. The question will come like this, account for the following. N2O5 is more acidic than N2O3. So this is explained in account of oxidation number, which says that higher the oxidation number, higher is the acidity, or the acidity can be accounted by oxidation number or increase in oxidation number. That is a value point. That is, higher the oxidation number, greater is the acidity. Then there is again a logic lies in that itself. Why? Why the higher oxidation number is more acidic than the lower oxidation number? Why? Why? Because the explanation is, in higher oxidation number, for say example, this is +5 and this is +3. Now in this +5 case, it is able to accept the electrons very easily. Okay, so that means it is more acidic in nature. Okay, so it is more acidic in nature. Why? Because this higher the oxidation state, higher is the acidic nature. Okay, so that is the explanation for this. That is, the value point is higher the oxidation state, more is the acidity. Okay, so that is about the oxidation state. Clear? Okay. Now, when you talk about this N2O3 and N2O5, isn't it? Okay, now we talk about N2O3 or E2O3. If you talk about E2O3, we can say that this nitrogen and phosphorus oxides of this N2O3, which I write it as N2O3 and P2O3. See, these two are acidic in nature. Okay, if you say the oxides, these two are acidic in nature. These two are amphoteric in nature. See, amphoteric in nature, and this is basic in nature. See, these are the gradation of the acidic to basic. That is only N2O5, not this N2O5. This is only N2O3 oxides. I am talking about E2O3 oxides. So E2O3 oxides of nitrogen and phosphorus are acidic. Arsenic and antimony is amphoteric, and bismuth is basic. So just note down it somewhere. So if questions are asked, which is amphoteric in nature, so you can have that answer, arsenic and antimony. Okay. So that's all about what the main thing is, acidic character. And also one more thing, the acidic character decreases down the group. In oxides, the acidic character decreases down the group. Why? Because the metallic character increases. That is the point. Okay. Why? The metallic character increases. You know, see, from nitrogen, phosphorus is non-metals, arsenic, antimony is metalloids, and bismuth is metal. So as the metallic character increases, the acidic character also increases. Okay. So you got the value point. So this is all about what? This is all about the oxides. Main oxides are E2O3 and E2O5. Now you take an example for that. If you have this formulae, you just make the examples of this N2 bismuth. So you can have N2O3, P2O3, AS2O3 like that, and N2O5, P2O5, etc. Then you study the characteristics. That is, here only two things are there. Greater the oxidation number, greater will be the acidic character. And the acidic character trend is, as we move from top to bottom in that group, the acidic character decreases. acidic character decreases. Okay, so why? Because the metallic character increases. Okay, so that's all about the oxides. Okay, now we will see the reaction with the halogens. Okay, now the reaction with the halogens. We have studied now hydrogen as well as oxygen. Now the reaction with the halogens. Now halogens are also mainly of two types, that is NX3 and NX5. That is trihalides. For example, if you say the general EX3 and EX5. Okay, EX3 and EX5. So you can have NX3 or NCl3, okay, or NCl5 or PCl5 and PCl3, like that. Just you account for that. What all halides are there comes in this group. Okay, so these are the halides, mainly EX3 and EX5. Okay, now the pentahalides means what? These are called as pentahalides. Okay, these pentahalides are more covalent in nature. That is only the point to remember. That is, they are more covalent in nature. The pentahalides are more covalent in nature. And the only trihalides which is stable for nitrogen is NF3. Okay, that is only trihalides which are stable is what? NF3. And all other fluorides other than BiF3 is covalent, which means BiF3 is ionic and all other fluorides like nitrogen, then phosphorus, arsenic, antimony fluorides are covalent, whereas bismuth fluoride is ionic in nature. Okay, so these are the important points. Only 2-3 are there. One is it forms EX3 and EX5, two types. Then these pentahalides are more covalent in nature. Covalency is covalent and ionic nature can be determined by the electronegativity value by Pauling scale. Okay, so that by that they are more covalent in nature. Then one more thing, nitrogen cannot form pentahalides. Okay, so this nitrogen cannot form pentahalides. Why? This generally I wrote it, that's all. So why nitrogen? Rest others can form pentahalides, AsCl5. Okay, so others can have pentahalide, but nitrogen cannot have pentahalides. Why? You know the reason. Because in nitrogen, d orbitals are absent, isn't it? The non-availability of d orbitals is the reason for having the nitrogen cannot have pentahalide, because it cannot expand its shells or orbits. It has only got S and P. There is no d orbitals present in it in order to expand that spin of that orbit. So that is why NCl5 is not present, but NCl3. So sometimes the questions can be asked like that. Why NCl5 is not there but NCl3 is there? A simple question, but the answer is what? The non-availability of nitrogen atom. Due to the non-availability, it cannot form pentahalides. Okay. Then the only trihalide which is stable for nitrogen is NF3. Okay. Just the points only in your book. Okay. Now all other fluorides except bismuth is covalent in nature. Okay. Bismuth is ionic and all other fluorides, trifluorides are covalent in nature. So that is all about the halogen. Simple points are there. Only 2 or 3 points to be remembered. That's all. Okay. Now coming to the last one, that is the reaction with metals. Now how these elements in this group react with metals. Normally these elements react with metals to form binary compounds. What do you mean by binary compounds? Binary compound means, for example, if a metal CaN, so N is 3, Ca2. So this is the compound formed, calcium nitride. Okay, aluminium nitride, that is Aln, because both are 3, so Aln. Okay, magnesium nitride, Mgn, N is 3, Mg is 2, Mg3N2. So these forms calcium phosphide, CaP2,3, Ca3P2, calcium phosphide. So these forms binary compounds when react with the metal. So the fourth is the reaction with metals. So these are the 4 reactions when you study about this 15th group generally. Okay, this comes under general characteristics. All these reactions for oxygen, hydrogen, halogen and metals. It's a very simple one. Okay. So this is about this 4 reactions. Okay. Now we will move on to the diatomic nitrogen. So you will study in detail about this diatomic nitrogen. Okay. So we call it as diatomic nitrogen, that is nothing but N2. Okay. We talk about more about this diatomic nitrogen. Okay. Now the first is, you know, what is the preparation of nitrogen? How you will prepare nitrogen? In small classes you have studied. It is by the fractional distillation of air. In a mixture of air, you can prepare this nitrogen. Okay, by the fractional distillation, the first thing to get out from that distillation is nitrogen, leaving behind oxygen and so on. So, by fractional distillation, you can get nitrogen. Okay, but you can have nitrogen that is in the lab. See, when you talk about preparations, when you talk about preparations, there are so many preparations there. For example, you can write the lab preparation of nitrogen, or you can ask how can nitrogen prepared in a small scale, or you can have a question like write the preparation of nitrogen on an industrial scale. So preparations are more. Okay, more than one preparation is there for every element. So coming to the lab preparation, you can have when ammonium chloride, you know that, right? Ammonium chloride, aqueous ammonium chloride, when treated with sodium nitrite, see, not sodium nitrate, nitrate is NaNO3, but you are taking nitrite, aqueous. I think I have already told you that, just keep an equation diary, so that all these equations you can write it in one diary to refer. Okay. So NH4Cl plus NaNO3 will give you have to get nitrogen. So nitrogen is there, N2 plus NaCl, okay, NaCl is there, and then 4H, that means 2H2O. See, this is the lab preparation of nitrogen. Once more I will tell you, when ammonium chloride is treated with sodium nitrite, you have to study this by writing again and again. You have to be comfortable with all these equations, right? So ammonium chloride plus sodium nitrite gives nitrogen plus sodium chloride plus water. This is the lab preparation. But in this lab preparation, some impurities like nitric oxide, and nitric acid will be there. So what you should do? You should remove the impurity by passing this impurity, that is passing these products having the impurity in a solution of concentrated sulfuric acid, then you will remove this NO and HNO3. Okay, so you have to remove this impurity of nitrogen, that is in a concentrated sulfuric acid in presence of ammonium chromate. Don't study that also, just you have to say these impurities can be removed and the main products are nitrogen, NaCl and water. Okay, so this is the lab preparation of nitrogen. Okay, clear? Now one more preparation is there, that is by the thermal decomposition of ammonium chromate. Okay, now the next preparation, this is not a lab preparation, this is only decomposition which can be prepared in lab. Okay, so that is the thermal decomposition of ammonium chromate, that is NH4 twice Cr2O7. That is the thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate. That is thermal decomposition means delta or heat. What you will get? You will get N2. You have to get N2, right? N2 plus Cr2 N2 plus Cr2O3 plus H2O. See, So these are formed, and this is an orange crystals. If you see in the lab, it is orange crystal. So the second method of preparation is by the thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate. Okay, so by thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate, you will get nitrogen plus chromic oxide plus water. Just balance it. Okay, that's all. I think it is balanced. Okay. So this is the second preparation of thermal decomposition. The first preparation was the lab preparation. How you prepared the lab preparation? That is, when ammonium chloride is treated with sodium nitrite, you will get nitrogen. The second is by the thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate. Okay. Then one more preparation is there, that is also important. That is how you will prepare very pure nitrogen. Okay. In all these, impurities will be there. But in the next preparation, what we will see is, that is the preparation of very, very pure nitrogen. Okay, that is also a thermal decomposition, but the thermal decomposition of barium azide. You know what is azide? N3. Okay, so when barium azide, Ba2, N is 1. So when thermal decomposition of barium azide, okay, when barium azide or sodium azide, okay, on thermal decomposition, you will get barium plus 3N2. See, this is the product obtained in this reaction is very, very pure. Okay, same we can have sodium azide, NaN3. NaN3. Okay, so this itself is 1 and sodium is 1 and nitrate is 1. So it is NaN3. Okay, so this will have what? Sodium plus N2. So if you balance it, this is 3, isn't it? So 3, 6, isn't it? So 2. So it is 2Na. So by the thermal decomposition of barium or sodium azide, you will get this nitrogen as well as the barium or whatever metal is taking. Okay, so these are the 3 preparations of nitrogen. You got it? It is simple. First is the lab preparation. Second is again you can have it in lab, that is the thermal decomposition of ammonium dichromate. Then third is very pure nitrogen. Sometimes question can be asked, how you will prepare the very pure nitrogen? That is the thermal decomposition of barium azide. Okay, so hope you understood this. Now we will pass on to the next, that is properties of nitrogen. You tell me, what are the properties, physical properties, going into the chemical, what are the physical properties of nitrogen? What are the physical properties of nitrogen? Nitrogen, you know, it is a gas. Okay, then it is a colorless, odorless gas, tasteless gas and non-toxic gas, isn't it? You know, when you talk about nitrogen, N2 gas, that is nitrogen triple bond nitrogen, that is inert in nature. That is why you have to study the uses of all these compounds. 1 mark question it can be asked, anyone use. So that is why nitrogen for an inert atmosphere, whenever you want an inert atmosphere for the reaction to take place, for example, in steel industry and all, inert atmosphere is necessary. So for that, nitrogen is used. Okay, liquid nitrogen, the uses is, it is used in a refrigerant. Okay, in refrigerant, ice creams and all. Then cryosurgery, it is used, liquid nitrogen. So some uses you have to study. Now coming to the properties, you know it is a gas, it is an inert gas, then a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas. Then when talking about the boiling point and melting point, there is a low MP and BP. Now what about the solubility? Nitrogen is less soluble in water, isn't it? Less soluble in water. That's all about the physical properties, you know, physical properties, solubility, boiling point, melting point, etc. Okay. Now coming to the chemical property, there are 3 reactions to study. The first chemical property you can say is, at high temperature, this nitrogen react with metals. First is with metals. Okay. First reaction is with metals and second reaction is non-metals. The reaction with metals, it can directly combine with metals. That is lithium plus nitrogen will give you lithium nitride. See? Okay, so this is Li is 1 and nitrogen is 3. So Li3N. So it must be 3 and it must be 2, right? 2. So it is 6 Li, isn't it? 6 Li plus N2 gives 2 Li3N. This is lithium nitride. See? Lithium nitride. You know, right? Is minus 3 nitride. Okay. So the direct combination of metals with nitrogen will give you the corresponding nitride. That is the first reaction. The reaction with metals. Okay. Got it? Simple. Now the second reaction is the reaction with the non-metals. Only one reaction you have to study with metals. Okay. Any other metal, sodium. Sodium also you can write Na plus N2 giving Na3N. Okay, that balance it, you will get the sodium nitride. Okay, so generally nitrides are formed with the direct combination of metals. Correct? Now we will see with non-metals how nitrogen react with the non-metals. Okay, how nitrogen react with the non-metals. That is, see, non-metals in the first case, you know, nitrogen react with the hydrogen to form what? To form ammonia. Isn't it? At high temperature, that is the peculiarity. With the non-metals, see, with the non-metals, it will be at high temperature. Okay, so that is a peculiarity. So at 700 Kelvin, it will form ammonia. That is 2 and 3. See, this is a reaction, a well-known equation. It is called as Weber's forces that we will study. So nitrogen plus hydrogen will give you ammonia at 700 Kelvin. That is a reaction with hydrogen. Correct? Now we will see what is a reaction with oxygen. All these equations, see, you have to write it and keep it. Nitrogen plus oxygen, you will have nitric oxide. This is again at high temperature, that is 2000 Kelvin. See, very high temperature. That is nitrogen plus oxygen will give you nitric oxide, that is NO. So these are the main things or chemical properties we have to study in nitrogen. Okay, so you have studied what? Mainly the preparation and the property. Any element you study. So for nitrogen, the general characteristics you study, the lab preparation, then the very pure nitrogen, then the physical property, then chemical properties with metals as well as non-metals. And then you have to go for 2 or 3 uses of nitrogen. Okay, liquid nitrogen is used as refrigerant, nitrogen is used for ammonia, the manufacture of ammonia fertilizer, so and so. So just keep 2 or 3 uses in mind. So that's all about this nitrogen. Okay, now we will see ammonia. Nitrogen we have seen, now we will see something about ammonia. Now the first preparation is from urea. You know what is urea? NH2CO NH2, you call it as urea. When urea is treated with water, urea we will get it in soil, okay, soil and all. We will get ammonia plus carbon dioxide plus water. See, when urea is treated with water, you will get ammonia plus carbon dioxide plus water. Okay, this is the simple preparation from urea. Now the second preparation is for a small scale preparation. Okay, small scale preparation is when ammonium salts. What is ammonium salt? It can be ammonium chloride or ammonium sulfate, etc. So when ammonium salts are treated with caustic soda means NaOH, or lime, that is calcium hydroxide. So when ammonium salts are treated with lime or caustic soda, you will get ammonia plus the corresponding salt plus water. So see an example. When ammonium chloride is treated with calcium hydroxide, that is lime, you will get ammonia plus calcium chloride plus water. In the same way, ammonium sulfate plus sodium hydroxide, caustic soda, you will get ammonia plus sodium sulfate plus water. See? So this is a small scale preparation of what? Small scale preparation of ammonia. A simple preparation is from urea on react with water, you will get ammonia. Clear? Now we will see the most important preparation for ammonia, that is a large scale preparation, or you call it as industrial preparation. What is it? Industrial preparation. And the process is called as Haber's process. Very, very important. Okay, it is called as Haber's process for the manufacture of ammonia in a large scale process, or industrially ammonia is prepared by Haber's process. Okay, now we will see what is Haber's process. You know, that is when nitrogen, when treated with hydrogen, you will get ammonia. Being an exothermic reaction, delta H is equal to minus 41.2 kilojoule per mole. It's an exothermic reaction. Okay, so then you know Le-Chatelier principle, right? According to Le-Chatelier principle, this formation of ammonia favors at very high pressure. See, at 200 bar pressure, whenever you write Haber's process, you have to write all these criteria in arrow. That is the pressure, the temperature and the catalyst. Okay, so we will see what is the pressure. According to Le-Chatelier, a high pressure favors the formation of ammonia. So you are getting it at 200 bar. And high temperature also, that is 700 Kelvin. And what are the catalysts? The catalyst is a mixture of alumina, that is Al2O3, and potassium oxide. Okay, so this is the catalyst used in Haber's process. Now earlier the catalyst was, the iron was a catalyst and molybdenum was the promoter. Promoter means for activating the catalyst we are using promoter, which promotes the catalyst. So earlier it was iron as a catalyst and molybdenum as a promoter, but now it is removed, and then now the catalyst is alumina, Al2O3, aluminum oxide, we call it as alumina, and a mixture of alumina and potassium oxide is used as a catalyst. So this is Haber's process. Whenever you write the Haber process, you have to mention the temperature, the pressure and the catalyst in this arrow. That is a reversible arrow. See, that's why I told you it's a reversible reaction. So according to Le-Chatelier principle, a very high pressure favors the formation of ammonia. Okay, so these three are the preparations of ammonia. You got it? Now we will, so this is a simple preparation, this is a small scale preparation with ammonium salt, and this is a large scale preparation or industrial preparation of ammonia. Okay. Now we will pass on to the properties, physical and chemical properties, 2 or 3 properties of ammonia. Then, first is, you know, ammonia means it is a colorless liquid as you have seen in lab, but it has got a pungent smell or odor. Okay, it has a pungent smell. You know the smell of ammonia. Then, when physical properties, when you talk about the melting point and the boiling point, is high, important, is high as when compared with the molecular mass of ammonia. Molecular mass of ammonia is very small, right? That is 3 plus 14, 17, isn't it? So, when you comparing the molecular mass, the ammonia shows a high melting point and boiling point. Now, whenever a question asks why some compounds are having high boiling point, 90% the answer must be they will have hydrogen bonding. Okay, so the reason still remains the same for ammonia, that is due to the hydrogen bonding in ammonia. You know there is a lone pair of electrons, isn't it? So due to the hydrogen bonding in ammonia, this has got a high melting point and a boiling point. Okay. Now then comes the structure of ammonia. What is the structure of ammonia? It is a trigonal bipyramidal structure. What is it? Trigonal. Okay, trigonal bipyramidal structure. Pyramidal structure. Now how we will draw it? You can draw it as nitrogen. Then one hydrogen is here. The other will go other side. So we will have a bridge structure. That is hydrogen here. Next is here. And here it is a lone pair of electron. So this is a trigonal bipyramidal structure of ammonia. And the bond angle is 107.8 degree. There is no need of putting the bond angle, but if you know, you can put. Otherwise, don't make it a mistake. Okay, if you don't know, leave it. Just draw the structure, that's all. Okay, then if the question demands, you can have, but it don't ask like that. Okay, so 107.8 degree, then this is trigonal bipyramidal structure. Okay, then coming to the chemical properties. Okay, so these are physical properties. Important point to be noted is high boiling point when compared to its mass, molecular mass, because of the hydrogen bonding. That is the main point. And its shape is trigonal bipyramidal, having a lone pair of electrons. And this is a Lewis base, isn't it? Because it has these electrons to donate. That's why it is a Lewis base or a Lewis base. These are the physical properties. Now coming to the chemical properties or reactions of ammonia. This is okay. Now, the chemical properties of ammonia, you know, ammonia is very well soluble in water, isn't it? Very, very well soluble in water. So, ammonia is soluble in water to form ammonium hydroxide, isn't it? It's a base. So, NH4OH, that is NH4 plus and OH minus. So, it is very well soluble in water to form a base. Okay. Then, you can all, this is the first reaction, that is a basicity, that's all. It's a weak base. Now, second is, when this ammonium hydroxide, this can precipitate some salts. For example, if you have zinc sulfate salt, when it is reacted with ammonium hydroxide, listen, this can precipitate the hydroxides of these metals. See, you can precipitate the metal hydroxides when metal salts are treated with this ammonium hydroxide, because it is a very well, it's a base, so it can dissociate to form NH4OH and OH minus. So this OH minus can get into this metal, forming the metal hydroxide, that is ZnOH twice, which is white in precipitate. See, it can precipitate metal hydroxides. Okay, so that is the second reaction. This ammonium hydroxide can precipitate metal hydroxides. Okay. The first reaction was, it is highly soluble in water, forming a base, that is ammonium hydroxide. Okay. Now, there is a third reaction which is important, and for iron also you can have, iron also. For example, see, iron, ferric chloride, FeCl3 plus NH4OH. What you will get? You will get Fe2O3 dot XH2O. Are you remembering what is this? It will precipitate. This is a brown PPT. What is it? Brown PPT of Fe2O3 dot XH2O. Hydrated ferric oxide, rust. Isn't it? So this is again an important equation. That is, precipitation happens. So it can be observed. The reaction can be observed. Okay, so this is the second reaction, that is when ferric chloride is treated with ammonium hydroxide, hydrated ferric oxide is formed, that is having a precipitate, the color is brown in color. Okay, so these two reactions are there. Then one more important reaction for ammonia is, the ammonia can be used to detect the metal ions. Okay, you will study in practical chemistry or in last chapter coordination chemistry. Okay, that means this ammonia can have a tendency, or ammonia can form complexes with these metal ions. That's it. So that's a test for these metal ions. That means by the coloration you can observe, by the coloration you can say, or you can detect that the ion, the metal ion present is copper or silver, etc. Okay, so for the detection of metals, the ammonia is useful. Okay, why? Because the ammonia has got a lone pair of electrons, you know that. So that is why it is called as a Lewis base. Now when this ammonia is reacted with metal ions, for example copper sulfate, if you take copper sulfate, you can take only copper, that is ion. When this ion is treated with ammonia, what happens, you know, this forms a complex. And this ammonia acts as a ligand. You will study in coordination. And then it forms a complex, and that complex will have a definite color. And by that color, you will know that the metal ion is copper. So for copper sulfate, you know, blue in color. Now when it forms a reaction with the ammonia, it will have CuNH3 4 times 2 plus. See, this is a complex. If you take copper sulfate, here the 2 plus will go and it will have sulfate, 2 minus and 2 plus. We will study later. So this is a complex which will have deep blue color. See, by knowing or by seeing this deep blue color, you know that the ion, the metal ion is copper. So that is how you detect copper. Silver also you can have the same thing. Silver means, you know, silver plus chlorine will give you AgCl. It's a white precipitate, right? White precipitate. Now if you take silver chloride, AgCl, plus this ammonia, you will get Ag, again a complex, that is AgNH3 twice Cl. See? This is again a complex which is colorless in solution. See? It's a colorless and this is white. AgCl, you know, white precipitate, AgCl. So when the white precipitate is changed to the colorless solution. So thus we can say or we can identify the ions present in a complex. These are called as complex. Actually, if you name this complex, it is tetramine, copper 2 sulfate. Okay. So that's why naming takes place. So these are the important reaction. Being ammonia a Lewis base, it can donate these electrons, isn't it? It can donate the electrons and form complexes. That is the value point. It can form complexes and it is used in the identification of ions like copper, silver, etc. Okay, so this is about ammonia. Only few things you have to study. Just the preparations, 3 or 4 or at least 3 preparations you have to study. Then some physical properties like NP, I told you whenever the boiling point is high for a compound, the answer 90% must be due to hydrogen bonding. You can just write that value point, boiling point. 90% will be correct. Okay. Then comes the reactions of ammonia. Then the shape of ammonia. The reaction first is it's a base. It's very soluble in water to give a base. Then it can precipitate metal hydroxides like zinc hydroxide, ferric hydroxide, etc. And the third is it forms complexes. And this reaction helps us to detect the metals like copper, silver, etc. So this is about the ammonia. Now we will see the nitric acid. So three compounds you have to study, that is nitrogen, ammonia and nitric acid. Okay. So nitrogen forms acids, for example nitrous acid, okay, nitric acid and hyponitrous acid, H2N2O2. Okay, out of which the important we have to study is nitric acid. Okay, so this year the syllabus they have reduced the phosphorus. Only nitrogen you have to study. Okay, so by studying this nitric acid, the 15th group will be over. We don't have to study the phosphorus. Okay, so then we will start the 16th group. Okay, so nitric acid, the lab preparation of nitric acid this is simple. That is only 2 preparations. One is the lab preparation and another is the industrial preparation. Lab preparation is when sodium nitrate, listen, not nitrite. Okay, there nitrogen we have studied sodium nitrite, but here sodium nitrate on treatment with sulfuric acid. Sodium or potassium nitrate on reaction with sulfuric acid, you will get nitric acid plus sodium bisulfate or potassium bisulfate. Listen carefully. Here a common mistake happens. That's why I am telling you, listen properly. Normally what the students will do, they will say HNO3 plus sodium sulfate, isn't it? But keep in mind, it is sodium bisulfate. It is not forming in the first reaction sodium sulfate, but It is producing sodium bisulfate or potassium bisulfate. So that you have to be very, very careful. Isn't it? We have a tendency to write this Na2SO4. That is the problem. So please be very careful in writing this equation. That is, when sodium nitrate is treated with sulfuric acid, you will get nitric acid plus sodium bisulfate. That is the lab preparation of nitric acid. In a glass resort, you are doing this experiment. Okay, glass, not resort, retro. Okay, so that is the preparation of nitric acid. Second is the industrial preparation of nitric acid, which you call it as a name process like Haber process in ammonia. This is called as Ostwald process in the manufacture of nitric acid. Ostwald process in the manufacture of nitric acid. Okay. Now what is this Ostwald process? This is a catalytic oxidation of ammonia with atmospheric oxygen or air. What is it? The Ostwald process is the catalytic oxidation, which means in presence of a catalyst, this ammonia is being reacted with atmospheric oxygen or air. Now we will see how it goes. See, when ammonia is treated with oxygen in the air. Okay, when ammonia is treated with oxygen, see the catalyst, platinum wire gas act as a catalyst. The temperature is 500 Kelvin and the pressure is 9 bar pressure. See, in all these named processes or named reactions, these conditions are necessary. If you don't write these conditions, your mark will be off. That's for sure. So you have to write and write again and again to make it confident. So ammonia plus oxygen in presence of platinum wire gas at 500 Kelvin at 9 bar pressure, you will have NO, that is nitric oxide plus water. This is not a reversible reaction. In the case of ammonia, it was a reversible process, but this is not a reversible process. So the first step is this catalytic oxidation. 3 steps are there for Ostwald. Okay. Second is this nitric oxide again react with oxygen because oxygen is in plenty. From the atmospheric air we get the oxygen, no? So nitric oxide react with oxygen. This is reversible. Will give you 2NO2, that is nitrogen dioxide. And the nitrogen dioxide, when dissolved in water, you will get nitric acid plus again this nitric oxide is liberated. See? So there are 3 steps in Ostwald process. Let me tell you once again. First is the main step, that is the catalytic oxidation or catalytic oxidation with ammonia with atmospheric oxygen or air. That is ammonia plus oxygen. The conditions you have to write, that is platinum wire gas, 500 Kelvin and 9 bar pressure. You will get nitric oxide plus water. Then in the second step, the nitric oxide react with oxygen to form nitrogen dioxide. And the third step, the nitrogen dioxide is dissolved in water to form nitric oxide plus nitric oxide plus nitric acid. And now this nitric oxide will again go into this, it is recycled from the second step. The nitric oxide will form again with oxygen, so this can be used for recycling purpose. Okay, so this is the Ostwald process for the manufacture in large scale this nitric acid. Now this nitric acid which is formed by this Ostwald process is only 68% volume. It is only concentrated up to 68%. You will say that no, it is 68% by mass percentage, you will say. But you can make it up to 98% of nitric acid by dehydration, that is removing the water, you can get up to 98% of nitric acid. But the what nitric acid you get in the Ostwald process is only about 68% mass by weight volume. Okay, so that is about the preparation of nitric acid. 2 types of preparation. One is a lab preparation with sodium or potassium nitrate with sulfuric acid. The main point is along with the nitric acid you will get the bisulfate. Now the Ostwald process, the 3 steps. Understood? Clear? Now we will see the properties of nitric acid. Now coming to the physical property, it is again a colorless liquid. You know, the concentrated is very fuming. Dilute nitric acid is an oxidizing agent, isn't it? And what about the structure? It is in gaseous state. In gaseous state, it is planar. The structure is planar. Now, planar means HNO3, right? HNO3, you will have NOO. Two O's are here. Then here again is O, and here it is H. See, HNO3. You have to study this structure, planar structure, and here the bond angle is 130 degree and here the bond angle is 12 degree. Bond angle you don't remember, just for the fact. So this is the structure of nitric acid. Just remember, what is structure of ammonia? Trigonal biplanar. Okay, bond angle is 107.8 degree. Here it is two bond angles, that is OO bond and OH bond. So this is 130 and 102. Now coming to the chemical properties. You know chemical properties, you all know nitric acid, you have seen nitric acid, okay. Now one of the chemical property is, it is soluble in water, it is a strong acid, isn't it? When in aqueous solution, it acts as a strong acid. It is act as a strong acid. Strong acid means what? It complete dissociation takes place. So what you will get? H plus and NO3 minus, isn't it? That is what is called as a strong acid. So in aqueous solution, it forms strong acid. That means H plus. H plus will combine with H2O to form H3O plus and NO3 minus. So in aqueous solution, it behaves as a very, very strong acid. See, once you know the concept or logic, how to get into it, then everything will be easier. That's why I told you the introductional part where the trends are there, you have to have a logical reasoning in that. Okay, so that you have to work out. You have to do your homework on your own. How to make into that point, how it comes, what is the bond dissociation energy, how it is applicable to both the reducing character as well as the stability. So make a complete understanding of all this and then you put together. Then it will be easy for you. Okay, you have to apply in these compounds. That's what. You see, if you know the basic ideas, that is good. You can apply. But if you don't know how to apply, that is a cause. So you have to make a habit of how to get that logical reasoning out of that question. That is important. So by doing the question papers, you can have the hang of that. Don't worry. So we will go to it. Okay. So coming back, nitric acid in aqueous media, it's a very strong acid behaves. So it will form H3O positive and NO3 minus. Okay. And you all know that concentrated nitric acid is a very, very good oxidizing agent, isn't it? Okay. It oxidizes almost all the metals, isn't it? And the exceptions are noble metals like gold, platinum, etc. Other than this, all metals it react with the nitric acid. But there are exceptional cases. That means, for example, the case of chromium and aluminium, there is a very, very little chance for the reaction with nitric acid. It's passive in nature. What do you mean passive? Passive means opposite of active. Passive means no reaction. Literally speaking, there is no reaction for metals like chromium, aluminum, etc. Why? Because, do you know what will be the reason? If I say aluminium and chromium, you know aluminium forms a protective layering of oxides, isn't it? Aluminium oxide or chromium oxide, which prevents the oxidation with nitric acid or prevents the further reaction with nitric acid. Okay. Now, this, as we say, concentrated nitric acid is a very, very good oxidizing agent. Okay, oxidizing agent. The oxidation depends on three factors. The oxidation depends upon three factors. Now, one is the temperature when the reaction taking place. Second is the nature of the material where the reaction happens. For example, which metal the nitric acid is attacking. And also The third is the concentration, the nature of concentration. If nitric acid is very, very concentrated, the product will be different from nitric acid when it gets diluted. Very important. That means the reaction with concentrated nitric acid depends upon three factors. One is the temperature, second is the nature of the material which is attacking the nitric acid, and third is the concentration of the nitric acid, whether it is concentrated and or diluted. And two important metals and the reaction to study is with copper and zinc. Very, very important. This also you must add on to this diary. The balancing diary, you have to add all these equations, important one. Okay, one by one you have to add that. Okay, so we will see how copper and zinc react with both concentrated as well as dilute nitric acid. Okay. Now, first we will see concentrated nitric acid, then dilute. The first metal you will take it to copper. Okay. Now, when copper react with nitric acid, you will get definitely what is it? Copper nitrate, isn't it? Copper nitrate plus if this is a concentrated acid, very, very important, that means 4, we will balance it, or we just balance it and study. If it is a concentrated nitric acid, the product will be, what is it? The product will be NO, that is nitric oxide plus water. Listen, when copper react with concentrated nitric acid, you will get copper nitrate plus nitric oxide plus H2O. Now, if the same copper react with dilute nitric acid, see, dilute nitric acid, it's very, very important. The same copper nitrate is formed, but instead of nitric oxide, listen very carefully, instead of nitric oxide, you will get nitrogen dioxide plus water. See the difference? If it is concentrated, you will get nitric oxide, and if it is diluted, you will get nitrogen dioxide. Just balance it. That's your duty. Balance it. Okay. So, concentrated, the main important thing is, if the concentration is very high, you will get nitric oxide, and if it is diluted, you will get nitrogen dioxide. Okay, understood? Now we will pass on to what happens when zinc. When zinc react with concentrated as well as dilute nitric acid. Okay. Now when zinc react with the concentrated nitric acid, concentrated HNO3, you will get the same way zinc nitrate, that is ZnNO3 twice, plus if it was copper, you will get nitric oxide. Listen, copper, you will get nitric oxide, but in zinc, if it is concentrated, you will get nitrous acid, laughing gas, N2O. Instead of NO, N2O along with water. See the difference? Metal to metal it depends. We have discussed nature of the metal, then temperature and the concentration. See how it changes? Then again, zinc on reacting with the dilute HNO3, listen, what you will form? It will form zinc nitrate plus the same thing, NO2. The same thing which was in copper. Copper when dilute HNO3, you will get nitrogen dioxide. The same as it is in copper, the zinc also nitrogen dioxide plus water. The only difference is in concentrated. In concentrated, copper will give nitric oxide, whereas zinc will give nitrous oxide, laughing gas. But in dilute nitric acid, the same happens, only the salt will be different. That is, the salt plus nitrogen dioxide in both cases. So these are the things which you have to remember and keep it in one diary to get it done. Okay. So this is about the reactions of nitric acid. So is it clear? And as I told you, it's a very good oxidizing agent, and it reacts with almost all metals except some noble gas metals. But one exception is, it does not react with metals like chromium and aluminium. Why? Because of the reason that aluminium and chromium will have a corrosive nature. It has a coating of oxide which prevents this oxidation. Correct? So this is all about the chemical reactivity. And one more thing, this nitric acid, this is metals, right? We have seen the metals. This nitric acid react with non-metals also. Now we will see the examples. Okay, that is iodine react with nitric acid. So it's a very good oxidizing agent, right? So iodine react with nitric acid to form iodic acid. That you have to know what it is oxidizing. And then NO2 and H2O. Okay. First we will see the non-metals reaction, then we will have a trick on how to balance it. I will tell you. So listen carefully. So first is iodine plus nitric acid. The iodine will oxidize to iodic acid. Then nitric acid itself getting reduced to NO2 and then water. Then second is carbon plus NO3 will give you, carbon will have carbon dioxide plus the same thing. Only this is different. The others are all same. The products are all same. Okay. Next is sulfur. That is S8 plus HNO3 will give you, sulfur is sulfuric acid. That is H2SO4 plus the same thing NO2 plus H2O. Okay. And the last is P4 phosphorus plus HNO3 will give you phosphoric acid. That is H3PO4 plus, these are all same. See. If you write this equation, all these two reactions are same, only this is different, these are same and this is different. So this you have to know, iodine to iodic acid, oxidation. Oxidation means in terms of oxidation number. Increasing the oxidation number is oxidation, right? So iodine to iodic acid. Now we will see how we will balance it. Okay, there is some small trick. That is, now one thing you have to study. That is, we are studying the stoichiometric coefficient of all this. Then it is very easy for the rest. Now, nitric acid with iodine, it is 10 nitric acid that we have to study. 10 nitric acid. Now, if it is 10 nitric acid, then this 10 nitric acid, you have to write 10 NO2. The same 10 will be in NO2. Whatever is this in nitric acid coefficient, that is the NO2 coefficient. Clear? So 10 HNO3 means 10 NO2. Now here you see 2 I2. Now iodine is here only, isn't it? So we can have 2 I2. So water you make it at last. Once you get all this, you can have the water balancing. So that is up to you. Now carbon, it is 4 HNO3. So this stoichiometry you have to study by heart or by any means. So if it is 4 HNO3, how many 4 NO2? 4 NO2. How many carbon? 1. So 1 CO2. Correct. Water we balance later. Now this is 48 HNO3. This you have to study. 48. 10, 4, 48. Now how many sulfur atoms? 8. So here only sulfur atoms 8. How many HNO3? 48. So how many NO2? 48. Correct. And the last is P4. This is 20 HNO3. So 20 HNO3 means 20 NO2. Okay. Now how many phosphorus? 4. So how many here? 4. See how easy it comes. So just you study this much. This you have to study. Okay. Then this will be easy for you. Because the products are all same. Only this is different. Oxidizing. Okay. So you just write and study. And then you take a trick on your own. Okay. How to get along with this. Make it easier for you. Okay, always you do your homework. Then only you will apply it when it comes. Okay. Otherwise, just by hearting this, it won't be enough for you. You have to find your own trick to how to get these equations done. All equations for that matter. Okay. So now comes the last tip, that is Brown ring test. That is the last tip in this portion, that is Brown ring test. I think all of you have done this Brown ring test in the lab, isn't it? For the test for nitrate ion, NO3 minus. Now what you will do in the Brown ring test? You take a little of salt in the test tube, add freshly prepared ferrous sulfate solution, freshly prepared then and there in situ. Then add sulfuric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid along the sides of the test tube slowly. What will happen? At the junction of the two liquids, what will happen? A brown ring is formed, which shows the presence of nitrate ion. Now we will see what is the chemistry behind it. This brown ring test, the chemistry behind the brown ring test is a sure shot Viva question. In Viva, most of the teachers will ask you, what is the chemistry behind the brown ring test, or what is the compound formed in that brown ring at the junction of the sulfuric acid and that solution. What is that brown ring? What is the chemical name of that brown ring? So that today we will see that. Now what is the test for nitrate ion, right? So it will be a salt containing nitrate. You have the ionic equation you will write, not the other equation. So the nitrate ion is there. Then you add freshly prepared ferrous sulfate solution, so Fe2+, correct? And sulfuric acid, acid medium, ionic equation will give you the ferrous is oxidized to what? Ferric, so it will be Fe3+, correct? Then the nitrate will be what? Reduced to nitric oxide, NO, and the rest is H2O. See, these are the form, the first step, that is NO3 is getting reduced to NO, Fe2 is getting oxidized, and H plus then H2O. Then what will happen, you know, there is a complex formed by the ion. See, there is a complex, that is iron and water will form a complex, and the complex then it reacts with this NO, which is formed from this equation, that is in this step, will form a complex, again a complex, that is Fe H2O 5 times. One H2O is kicked out and the NO is getting inside, that is this complex 2+. See, if it is FeSO4, this 2+ will go and SO4 will come. In your textbook it is 2+, that's why I put 2+. So this is the brown ring. See, this is the brown in color. This is the brown ring you will get in the brown ring test at the junction of the two liquids, that is sulfuric acid and the solution. And you can name this brown ring as nitroso. NO means it's a complex. We will study in coordination the complex. So nitroso ion complex. You can say it as nitroso ion complex. Okay. So this is the chemistry behind the brown ring test. So that is the end of this 15th group. 15th group. Now since phosphorus is not there, now we are going straight away into the 16th group. So next session we will have the 16th group. So till then make your own notes. Then so thank you.